everyone. In episode 8 of GenTech, we're talking about Palladio, which is a cool tool that allows you to visualize things on maps and allows you to visualize relationships. So we'll talk about what Palladio is, why you'd want to use it for family history research, and I'll give you a demo to show you some of the features of things that you can do. Palladio is an online tool that allows you to visualize all kinds of historical data. It can, like I said, display relationships between your data, so you can think of that as being relationships between your people and your family or in these communities that you're researching. It also allows you to show locations on a map, and by being able to visualize this data, it allows you to examine all of your research and all of your data from a variety of different perspectives. And why would you want to use it for family history research? It allows you to identify any relationship gaps, identify those community connections, and also to visualize those connections. And so what's the catch? The tool is actually free to use. I will say that there are a few limitations with this tool in that when you're creating these visualizations, you can currently only share them through screenshots. So you'll notice, even as I'm creating these visualizations in the demo, unfortunately, you can't share these more interactive visualizations with other people. You can only create screenshots, so that kind of stinks. But whenever you are creating these visualizations, you do want to make sure to create a spreadsheet or a CSV file from your data. And you want to make sure that your data fits their preferred structure. And so if you ever have any questions or concerns about how to do that, you can always go to their website to find out from their documentation how to make your data fit that structure. And where can you use this tool? I would recommend, if you do decide to use this tool, to use it as a way to create a rough visualization of some of your research leads. And even though these visualizations aren't really interactive when you share them, you can share the images, the screenshots of these visualizations on your website, in various presentations, wherever. So it can be a great way to visualize your thoughts in a very easy way. All right, let's jump into that demo. Palladio was created by the Stanford Humanities and Design department. So in order to find their website, I'll actually provide a link to this tool in the description below, but you'll want to go to hdlab.stanford.edu/Palladio. You can also go into Google or whatever your preferred search engine is and type in Palladio and Stanford, and it should come up. So when you get to the home page, it'll provide you with some instructions on how you can use it and the things that you can do with it. So like I said, you can create maps, you can create these charts so you can show relationships between other people. They also allow you to create lists, which I feel like is just a different way of looking at your CSV data or your spreadsheet data. And then you can also create galleries. So if you have images of different individuals, it essentially presents you with a table of these individuals' names and other information about them along with an image. So I'm going to do a couple of different things here with some data that I have. I'm going to go to Start. And first, I'm going to visualize some relationships between some individuals. Now, I already have a CSV file created. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of links that show you how to structure your data. So if I were to click on this link here, it'll give you some information about how you might want to set up your spreadsheet or your CSV file. I believe if you go to this menu over here on the left too, they do also have some tutorials and frequently asked questions as far as other things that you can do with Palladio, and of course how to structure that data. So I'm going to go back to my Start, and I'm just going to pull in the CSV that I've created. So the one I'm working with is called Relationships. I'll just open it up so you guys can kind of see what I have in it. I basically created a relationship ID which uniquely identifies the relationship. So a relationship between two people is identified as one relationship in my data. And then I have the person's name, their birth date, the relation, so the person that they are being related to, and the relationship type. And as you'll see, we'll be able to pull from this data whenever we create our visualization. So I've only got 19 rows, it looks like, but should be a sufficient amount for you guys to see how this works. So what I'm going to do is take this relationships file and just drag it and put it on this box they have here. So I can either do that or I can copy and paste from that file. Right, so I moved it over. It looks pretty similar to how it looked in the spreadsheet, except of course since it's a CSV file, that means it's a comma separated values file, which means that it puts commas between each of the cells essentially in that spreadsheet. So if I go back to the spreadsheet, each one of these little cells is separated by a comma. Now, if you are working with a spreadsheet and you need to save it as a CSV file, you'll want to make sure to go to File, Save As, and then save it wherever you're going to save it, and make sure you have it set to CSV, comma, delimited. Okay, so I've got my data loaded up here, and that's all I need to do for the first step, so I just go ahead and click Load. And it provides you the option to set up a title for the project. You don't have to, but if you do want to, you can type that here. And you can also set a title for your data if you'd like. And it gives you some quick information. So each of those columns we saw in the spreadsheet is listed out here, and it tells you the type of data that's in those columns. So relationship ID is a number, name is text, birth date is a date, relation is also text because it's the other person's name, and then relationship type is text. Now I do have this red dot here. I found that with this tool, sometimes it doesn't really explain what certain things mean, and this is one of those things. I think this basically means that it's encountered some sort of weird thing in your data. If I click on that red dot, as I can see, it's highlighted in red here that I need to verify any special characters. So it shows me my data that's under this column relationship type, and it indicates that there's a couple of values that have these hyphens. So as you can see, I have brother-in-law, and then I think I have son-in-law as well as another one. So what I want to do is just verify that that's fine, the special characters are there, I don't really care, and then I can click Done. And so now the circle is still there, just letting me know that I verified that, but now it should be fixed. So in order to visualize these relationships, I'm going to want to go to Graph at the top of the screen here. And as you can see, there's nothing here. So we have to make sure to set the source and the target for this data. So the source is where the data starts. So for my source, I want to start with the name. So whatever individuals you have in that name column will be the individual who will start that branching off process in your visualization. So I'll show you what that means in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and choose name as my source. And then for my target, essentially what I want to link the names to is going to be relation. So as you can see in the background, it's already started creating the visualization. Now I can kind of hide this menu by clicking on these three lines here so I can see my visualization a little bit better. I can click and drag to kind of move around, but as you can see, I primarily focused on this individual, and then I branched out to other individuals who are related or have some sort of relationship to her. So these can be neighbors, these can be teachers, doctors, friends, family members, all kinds of different people. And if people are linked to multiple other individuals, they are also linked here. So this person is linked to this person because that's actually her mom. And then this person is linked to that person. But this person's also linked to this person. So you can have multiple different linkages that kind of cross each other's paths. Now, as I said, you really can't download this interactive visualization. So as you can see, I can hover over the names and it puts them in bold. Unfortunately, you can't do that with Palladio. If I were to go back to that menu and click download, it's just going to save it as an SVG file, which will save it like this. So this can kind of work if the names are formatted in a way that doesn't make them unreadable, if that makes sense. So for example, here I have this individual with his Y kind of getting cut off of his last name. Now what I would suggest is essentially creating a screenshot. So I'm going to go to snipping tool. If you're on a Windows computer and you have Windows 10, you should have snipping tool available to you. Do new, and then I'll just click and drag over my diagram. And then I can save this as whatever file I want, put it on my website, share with other people, whatever. Now the other thing that you can do with Palladio is you can create maps. So I'm going to start over from the beginning. And I just clicked on the P to go back to the home screen, but I want to click on this leave button. It's just telling me, hey, this isn't going to be saved, which is fine. And then I'll click start. And this time I'm going to basically import a different CSV file, this South Carolina locations file. And it lists a bunch of different places and their coordinates in South Carolina. So these are places that are important to my research. So I'm going to click and drag over the SC locations file. And it looks like that. So I'll go ahead and do load. I can set up a title again if I want to for the project, and I can set up a title for the table. I'm not going to really worry about that. I'm just going to go ahead and click map. And so far, I don't see anything, which is perfectly normal. So it just gives me a map of the world. What I want to do is go to new layer, because essentially when I'm adding this location data in, I'm adding a layer on top of this map image here. So my points for each location will appear on top of this map image. So I can name this layer. I'm just going to name it South Carolina locations. And then I can click here near places and click coordinates. So as you'll recall, coordinates is one of my columns in my CSV file or spreadsheet. So these are the latitude, longitude coordinates for these locations. I can also set up a tooltip label, and that will basically present some text that will tell me, in this instance, the place name. Now, if I had some other columns available, they would appear as little boxes here, and I could choose one of those. So, for example, if I had, I don't know, maybe the description of a place or something like that, you could click on description and have that pop up as the text around that point. I'm just going to choose place name and do close. All of these other options you don't have to set up. So I'll just go ahead and do add layer. And as you can see, it's added my points on this map. So if I zoom in, I've got a few points in South Carolina, and if I hover over them, it'll tell me what those places are. So some of them are towns, some of them are churches or cemeteries. I've also got a location in North Carolina and a location in New York. And these are all important to my people in South Carolina. It's kind of hard to see where exactly these points are because there's really no labels that kind of indicate where the states are. So in order to change that, you can click new layer, go to tiles, and then you can choose a different kind of map. So if I do buildings and areas, for example, I'll show you what that looks like. It basically kind of just colorizes the map a little bit so it's not that grayscale or black and white. If I don't like that, I can click on the trash can here and it'll go back to that land tile. So I'm going to go to a different layer. There's a whole bunch of different tiles that you can use, but I'm going to just click streets and add layer. And as you can see, it started adding the layers for each of the different countries. So if you had some pins over in other countries, you would be able to easily see those countries. Now, what I don't really like about this map is that it doesn't provide the borders for each of the states. So you do have like the states' names, and as you zoom in, you can see more information about the cities, but there's really no borders between them. So if you use other map making tools like Mapbox or Leaflet, you can actually import custom tiles from those programs, so then that way the map looks exactly the way that you want. But those topics would be for a future video potentially, so I won't go into that. You can also create shapes, so if you know how to use GeoJSON, you can create all kinds of different shapes and things like that on top of your map. Alright, so there's one more type of visualization that I want to show you guys. So I'm back at the home page. I'll click on Start. And I'm basically going to import my other locations file. So this locations file focuses on an individual and their own travels. So I have the individual's name, the year that the person was in that place, and then previous location and arrival location. So I only have 4 of these, but I think it's enough to kind of show you guys what this feature can do. So I'll click and drag over locations to load it. And it looks good. I'm going to actually name it because I'm actually going to import another table as well. So I'm just going to name it this individual's name. And the title for this project I'll just call Clifford's Travels. Now, I need additional information about the previous location and the arrival location. As you notice probably with the CSV file, I don't have any latitude or longitude coordinates for these locations, so there's really no way for Palladio to know exactly where these locations are. But that's why I have this other CSV file. So the South Carolina locations file that I showed you guys before has these locations as well as their coordinates. So I'm going to want to pull in this CSV file. So to do that in Palladio, it's a little bit weird. You want to click on the items that need those coordinates. So previous location has these locations in my data set, and so I want to basically import the CSV file for those 3 locations so I can get the latitude and longitude for them. So I'll go to add a new table, and I'll do the same thing. I'll drag and drop South Carolina locations in there because my coordinates are in that file. And then I'll click load. And it says 3 out of 3 matches for previous location in untitled. So untitled is just the name of the new table that I just added in there with the coordinates. And it's saying that these 3 rows match with data that is in that new table. So that's a good thing. So it's been able to identify those locations based on name, and it's been able to associate them with those coordinates. So I'll click done. And then I want to do the same thing for arrival location. Now, since I've already uploaded this untitled data set, I want to click on arrival location. And I don't need to import the CSV file again. I can just choose table and click untitled. And it says all 4 of these records have a match in that untitled data set. So that's also good. And I'm just going to change this from untitled to coordinates. As you can see, it also updated it over here as well. So I want to go to map, and we don't have anything here yet. So what we want to do is go to new layer. This time, instead of a points map like we created on the previous example, we're going to want to do point to point. And so you have the options. You have a source place, so where the person started at, and the target place where the person ended up at. So for source place, I'm going to choose previous location, which is a name that I had put in my data set. And then I'm going to choose arrival location for the target places. Now for the tooltip is going to be that text that pops up whenever you hover over the point. I can choose place name or I can choose something else. I'm just going to keep place name because I don't think coordinates is going to be very helpful here. I forgot to mention, but you can also change the color if you want to. I'm just going to leave it this gray color. And I can also name this layer. So if I just want to say these are the locations, I can type locations here. I'll do add layer. As you can see, my points have already showed up. So if I zoom in, so I only had 4 locations in my data set. Oh, don't want to zoom in that much. So I only had 4 locations in my data set. If I zoom in a little bit more, I can hover over each point and see what those locations were. So 2 towns in South Carolina, a town in North Carolina, and then a town in New York. Now, in order to see the labels of the states, again, I want to do new layer, go to tiles, and then I can click streets, and then add that layer. And so now I have those names of each of the states here. As I mentioned with the relationship graph that we created, you can't really download the data. So if I were to download this map here, it's going to download it as a JSON file, which can be helpful if you know how to program in JSON, but we're not going to worry about that. You can also do export. If you do export, it's going to export it as a SVG document. So if I do save and I open it up, it doesn't provide me with the map anymore. So this is not helpful, and you also don't get the interactive features. So what I would suggest is to go to your map and do like I did for the relationship diagram. Just go to snipping tool and get a screenshot. Now I believe the Mac also has a similar tool like this too. I can't think of what it is right now off the top of my head, but you can also use that to create a screenshot. And so there I have a little bit of a visualization of the travels of this particular individual. So this is a really great kind of rough draft to kind of help me visualize where this person traveled and stuff like that. And that's it for this episode. If you liked what you saw, if you learned something good, make sure to subscribe to my channel, Olivia Peacock. Give me a like on this video, shoot me some comments, shoot me some questions, let me know what you think.